I want to tell you about a conversation I had this weekend that I can't stop thinking about. I was at a retreat, the same one I mentioned in the previous episode with Wolf Fisher, Awakening Hearts, the one that cracked me open a little. And there was a man there, quiet in a way that felt intentional, not shy. The kind of quiet that belongs to someone who has spent a lifetime watching. And at some point he started telling me about his photos. Not just photos themselves, the moments behind them. What it felt like to stand on the edge of Fifth Avenue in 1978 holding a camera, scanning the crowd to make sure no one from work could see him. What it was like to drive across the country alone in 1979, stopping at every gay bar he could find, learning city by city how to be himself, and what it meant to lose people to AIDS. What it meant to open a box of old photographs 40 years later and discover that life he thought he'd just been living, imperfectly, cautiously, joyfully, desperately, was actually history. And I felt something happen in my chest that I wasn't expecting, because there's something sacred about being witnessed. We talk about it a lot on this show, but there's also something sacred about being the witness, about the person who keeps the record, who refuses to let the small human-specific truth of life get swallowed by time. And that's what today's guest does. And I didn't fully understand until this weekend how much I needed to know someone was doing it. This one is for everyone who ever had to hide, and everyone who ever wondered if the story was worth keeping. It is. I promise you. I promise you it is. This is Spirit Talk Show, Bedtime Stories for Grown-Ups. This is Doyle. My guest tonight is Mike Balaban, retired finance executive, self-taught photographer, storyteller, community builder, and what he calls himself, the accidental gay historian. Yes, accidental, he'll explain. Mike grew up in a cattle ranch in the Deep South in the 1950s and 60s, the only Jewish family in the county. He knew at 5 years old from kindergarten crush on a class golden boy, he was different in a way that was not going to be safe to say out loud. So he did what other kids in this position do. He made himself useful in other ways. He became the family photographer because his mother had a habit of cutting off the heads in pictures. He played every single sport he could, college football, rugby, pole vault, because athletes don't get questions. He became an expert observer of people because watching and mimicking and cataloging, which is maybe the deepest irony of his life, that the survival skill would eventually become a gift. He came out at 24 in Washington, D.C. in 1976, a moment in American history where being openly gay could cost you your job, your family, your home. He went to the first Pride Parade in Manhattan in 1978, stood on the edge of the crowd, making sure nobody from Wall Street could spot him. I got a photograph of Grace Jones in a Pink Panther outfit prowling the stage, and something in him shifted. He kept the camera running. Decades later, when he started posting those photos on Instagram in 2016, he expected mild interest. He got 50,000 followers from across platforms, strangers approaching him on the street, and messages from young queer people writing to say that nothing had ever made them feel less alone. He and his collaborator Tom Walker co-founded Bammer.co, an archive of a community platform dedicated to preserving the personal LGBTQ stories that don't make it into the history books. His forthcoming book, Accidental Gay Historian, is a record of all that. Oh, and he's related to the actor Bob Balaban. We got to talk about that, which makes a certain amount of sense because Mike has spent his entire life being a precise, loving, unflinching observer of human beings, which is, when you think about it, exactly what great actors do. Mike Balaban, welcome to Spirit Talk Show. Researching you today, I learned lots of interesting things about you. You worked on Wall Street, a financier. You really were, you made people like you are heroes in the community. Like you made a stand in, I believe, 1978 to come out in a world where you could lose everything. How did you make that decision?
Well, it's not so black and white. You kind of have to put yourself back into that era, which most young people today have no capacity to do, to imagine. But we had no choice. We had to hide. We hid as well as we could until AIDS outed us.
Yeah.
And, while hiding, we made our living in careers that were often not very receptive to anybody remotely openly LGBTQ. So, I mean, I'll take the congratulations or the kudos, but it was survival. It was finding a way to do what you need to do to get through life in an era when we were repressed, suppressed, denigrated, jailed, institutionalized, you name it, right?
Of course, but it's not just that. The point is you chose to go out on the street with your camera to grab a picture of the person in the Pink Panther suit. Who was that? That was Grace Jones in a Pink Panther suit. You chose to go on the street and watch to see if people were seeing you there. So you knew. So there's a bravery in that, right? Because you knew if somebody from your job saw you.
So 1978 Pride was my first.
Yeah.
I had arrived in this city in November of 76, so it was a year and a half later. I went to the Pride March, and I hid behind throngs of people on the sidewalk along the street watching the parade. I could not afford to be seen by anybody I knew. After the march was over, everyone headed up to the Great Lawn in Central Park, which is this big, dusty, green field. And that's where Grace Jones performed in concert on a stage erected for the occasion. I didn't know anybody. I wasn't out to any other gay people.
Yeah.
I was wandering amid them and observing, kind of cataloging everything for my own, knowledge.
Yeah.
And I saw her on the stage, and I pushed my way through people. I got up to the front, and I took a few photos of her. I also happened to see her a couple other times in very small nightclub concerts. So people were more accessible back then.
But the point is, a lot of people who couldn't afford to be seen didn't stand on the street. So you stood on the street. And for the listeners who are a little bit of the less than middle-aged persuasion, tell me who Grace Jones is.
She was the ultimate model, the first kind of supermodel.
Oh, yes.
Who then switched over and became a singer and an actress.
Wow.
And she was known by everyone. She's maybe like, what's her name, who does all the albums now that everyone's in love with?
Beyonce or what's
No, the one who's marrying the Kansas City football
Oh my
player.
gosh! I'm so not gay if I don't know what's her name. Oh my gosh!
Me either.
I don't know. Oh my gosh! We should. I'll edit her name in later. What's her name?
Everyone listening knows. So we don't.
Everybody listening knows. So I just spoke to this morning. Not this morning. The interview I did you today at 5:00 was Will. Will actually spoke to me today, and I spoke to him about this retreat I went on, and I don't know if you're comfortable talking about that.
Sure.
But I want to tell you, I was sitting at that retreat this weekend, and you started to tell me about your photos, and something happened in my chest that I wasn't expecting. There was something about a person who has been keeping a record all this time, finally opening a box, and what was it like for you to share those images and how the way people responded at the retreat?
Well, you maybe ought to take stock of the fact that I only took photos for my own enjoyment.
Yeah.
I showed them to my friends. They were usually on vacation because cameras were heavy and expensive, and lugging around it wasn't easy. So I would bring them with me on a 1-week vacation, take as many photos as I can, and then spend $100 on a salary of $30,000 on top of my cost of my vacation developing those photos, and then showing them to my friends at brunch and dinner and telling them about the wonderful carnival vacation I had in Rio or wherever, and then put them in an album, forgot about them. And I did that for 30 straight years.
Yeah.
And it was only after I retired, and frankly, I'm an Energizer bunny, so if I'm not busy all the time, I'm depressed.
Go ahead. Sorry,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Without the full calendar that a work environment, plus I was on 2 LGBT nonprofit boards, without the busyness that they gave me, I was bored. So I started looking at, I have 14 photo albums and a box with 20,000 negatives in chronological order in sleeves. So that's how organized I am. I can take you on my phone to the 2,500 photos I keep there for ready accessibility, and I can refer you to one of them and bring you there in 30 seconds.
I don't, but I want to call you out a little bit. I don't think you're completely honest with yourself, because at the retreat, you said a few times, like, I don't go for this, feely stuff. And then you would express something amazingly feeling and beautiful. You took it, you got in a car, you got in a 74 Toyota. Is it a Celica or Celica?
Yeah,
Celica. You got in a car in 1978 and you drove across country, specifically went to gay bars across the country to take photos. You knew you were collecting something. Come on, Mike. You knew you were collecting something. I knew that I would want to know. I had no way of knowing that anybody else would care. And what I was doing, so I worked on Wall Street. I hated it. Yeah.
I negotiated a severance, sublet my Manhattan apartment, took my little one, my Celica, and drove in the middle of the gas crisis across country.
Yeah.
And because I had no gay friends in New York, because I didn't go out, because I was on Wall Street and closeted, and I was also hung up on my straight best friend in the training program, I had no gay knowledge or life or friends. So I decided on that trip I would buy what old middle-aged people, as you call them, would recognize as the Bob Dameron Guide, which was a domestic cheat sheet for where to go for spots in the park, in the toilets, wherever. It wasn't only bars and clubs.
Cruising,
And they told you things like AYOR, at your own risk.
Yeah.
And it was a guide. Now, like the Green Book, if you've heard of that, for black people traveling around the country in the 50s. So I brought the Dameron Guide, and when I drove to Little Rock, I entered the Discovery Disco, which is one of the more depressing places I had ever been. Spent an hour, had a drink, and drove on. And I was in Austin and Dallas and Houston and Lubbock and Albuquerque and Santa Fe until I got to San Diego, where my brother lived. Yeah. And I was escaping New York, but unbeknownst to me, I was learning how to be gay.
So you talk about your upcoming book, The Accidental Gay Historian, right? Isn't that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
Accidental Gay Historian. Let's see. You talk about it. Let's go back to your childhood a little bit. So you write in the book, and of course I read part of what you sent me. You talk about a kindergarten crush and the knowledge that made your knowledge arrive completely and clear, but it was impossible to say it loud. What does it do to a child knowing something that important about themselves and immediately having to hide it?
Well, it's more complicated than that, but we get signals, and the world sent us signals that we couldn't let people know we had this crush.
Yeah.
Now, he asked me to play doctor with him and this girl behind the big tree in the backyard of the kindergarten at lunch one day. I recently told that story on Facebook, and that girl is one of my friends and follows me and goes, "Oh my God, I was in love with both of you. I had no idea."
Oh, that's funny.
So I knew I was attracted to him. Do you know what demisexual is?
I do know what demisexual, but let's talk about it for the listeners.
Well, but demisexuality is when you're attracted to someone because of a chemical and emotional connection.
Yeah.
And I was drawn to this little boy because, frankly, he had the charisma. He knew he was going to be the star on every team. His father was the coach. He acted like it, and that drew me.
Yeah.
And that was it. I didn't know it meant more beyond that. Some people try to turn it into having sexual thoughts at age 5. No way, Jose. We were innocent kids in the 50s.
Well, yeah. So you talk about I read about you met a bartender named Beau in that summer in San Diego, and he became your home base, your teacher, your summer boyfriend, and then AIDS took him. Can you tell me about Beau and what it means to carry someone like him with you?
Well, Beau was from the same area of the Deep South that I was, so we identified. And he was, frankly, wasn't the brightest candle in the shop, but he was so friendly and so handsome. And frankly, I walked into this big disco, the West Coast Production Company, the WCPC or the Wussy Pussy, And I walked into this big disco on my first night in town. And if I were in New York, if anybody approached me directly, as they did in those days, and said, "Do you want to go home and fuck?" I would have said, "Actually, I'd like to have dinner and then maybe afterwards." And they would go find somebody who wanted to fuck right then. So that night, I bought a beer from Beau and didn't even pay him any attention. I was so overwhelmed by the place. Eventually, the bar back brought me a beer from Beau. I went over to thank him. And that's when he said, "Do you want to go home when I get off at 2 and fuck?" I'm like, "Okay, I got the summer here in San Diego, nothing to do, don't know anybody but my brother, sure." And that began our summer boyfriendship.
Well, great. I get 3 F words per show, so that's your 3 F words, okay? But there's an entire generation of men like Beau who didn't get to grow old, didn't get to tell their stories, they didn't get to see the world change the way it has. When you think about the gap they left, not just personally, but historically, how did that sit with you that people like Beau didn't get to stay?
Well, I've had decades to live with this.
Yeah.
When I had my recent photo exhibition in Palm Springs, I showed 20 years, 1977 to 1996, of one of the most difficult periods gay men have ever had to deal with. And yet people left the gallery going, "Oh my God, those photos made me feel so joyous." Mm-hmm. Why? Because despite AIDS, we all had to forge lives. We had to find boyfriends, get jobs, take vacations, take care of our friends who were dying. But we managed and made a life out of it. Now, what do I think about them? I'm extremely, depressed at the thought that they should be here right now. But I've had decades to get used to it. Madonna did a thing on her show at every concert stop this last tour where she put up photos of about 200 or 300 gay men, mostly men, who died of AIDS, to remember them. And 30 of those photos were of my friends. Wow. So we say what is remembered lives.
Yeah, So you talk about the language that gay people developed just to survive, find each other inside the straight world. So the straight people had no idea, like the gaydar, the code signals, the certain bars, the certain restaurants. Do you think what gets lost when we don't use that language anymore?
Oh, a lot of magic. First of all, what we use now is a thing in our hands with an app in it. Yeah. And we don't know anything about the person except their stats, maybe some photos. And you meet them and forget it. It's a demisexual. I have no interest because you don't get to chat with them and get to know them and flirt or discover that they have a sense of humor or whatever. So, yes, a great deal was lost. And we had our own ways of dealing with each other. I could walk into a 400-person straight banquet or Yale Club function or whatever. Yeah. And within about 60 seconds, my eyes canvassed the room, and I could tell you who the 4 good-looking guys were there. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, you notice 1 or 2 people looking at you just a little bit longer than everybody else. Mm-hmm. So maybe you walk over to one of them because you think he's cute too, and you have this secret entente taking place in the middle of a crowd of 400 that no one is aware of except the 2 of you. That language was very important.
So let's go to your website, bammer.co. It isn't just your archive. It's a platform where you're inviting others to preserve their own stories that are not in the history books. So what made you realize that yours wasn't enough for that website? You need to open it up to the world.
Well, I believe in creating LGBT community through storytelling. Mm-hmm. So how am I going to do that if I don't have people sharing their stories? So we have about 200 stories. Frankly, this site is relatively inactive because my partner who helped me create it was an editor and a techie. And without anyone there to do those functions, I'm kind of lost. So
he's not doing it anymore?
Really... Sorry?
He's not willing to do it anymore?
If I found somebody that wanted to take care of those functions, yeah. I'm a good copy editor, but I'm not a story editor, if you know the difference. So, yes, I'm willing to, but when he had to go back to work and I was doing it alone, right now it sits there, it's available, people come and look at it and sign up, but I'm not tending to it and expanding the stories. However, in the next month, a page will go up there with 100 of my photos, which can be purchased on the page, and I have nothing to do with it. It gets printed, delivered, signed by me, etc.
I know.
So there are a lot of different parts of my Bammer empire, for lack of a better word. And the website is one, the Instagram is one, the YouTube videos every other week for 3.5 years is another, my TikTok is another. I have a podcast interview series like you.
Yeah,
so
nice.
They all come together. So I can't really represent the website as being the key part of it, but it is an important part of it.
Well, regarding the website, imagine if by chance you met a handsome Irishman who has a master's degree in computers and is a techie and manages people's nonprofit websites as part of a side gig. Just imagine you met somebody like that. Would you? Well,
we still have to meet the person who's going to edit the stories.
Well,
I mean,
well, you said you're a copy editor, didn't you?
Copy editor I can do. That's spelling, consistency, paragraphs. Story editors, that line that ends the story should actually be at the opening of the story because it's so powerful. Yeah. And knowing that kind of story arc, is something that takes a special gift.
But I think people would like also stories written by gay men in their own words, however it is, to just an archive of. It doesn't have to worry about too much about the creativity, storytelling, just gay men stories put up in their own words. I think people would really like that as well. So.
Well, those 200 do that, but I'm happy to entertain how we can get more on there.
Yeah, so
just have to take care of those functions.
So let's see. I'm talking about. It says you were about big moments like Stonewall, the AIDS crisis, marriage equality, that found a place in the record, right? So, do you have any personal stories related to that?
I'll think of it. I have done a video that may piss some people off about Stonewall.
Okay.
Based on the people I interviewed who were there, it was not an extraordinary trans women, extraordinary people of color. I mean, there was a little bit of everything, but there's a certain amount of credit being given to people that weren't even there that night. And I know people who were with them when other people said they were at Stonewall. So it's an important event. It should go to the masses. Credit shouldn't be of concern, but people are rewriting history because it suits their own purposes.
Okay, well, that probably is something that happens. So you talked a little about the apps. I've noticed that some gay bars are closing, community spaces are disappearing, people are meeting on apps instead of rooms. So you feel strongly about what we lose in those rooms. What exactly did those rooms give us that the apps can't?
Well, they were safe spaces. They were places to meet without having to go in the bushes or wherever. But there were many other ways, meeting people in the street with a nod, or do you have a cigarette, or do you know what time it is? Yeah. We've lost the lost art of cruising, and all we do now is cruise on apps, and that's not very successful. So I don't think, for a while, lesbian bars were closing at an abnormal rate, and they were down to like 15 in the country. But I've read that they're coming back, and I do believe there will always be gay bars. They'll serve different functions. They'll have different crowds. I don't mean non-gay, but not all gay men, right?
Yeah,
I'm not concerned about the long-term prognosis for bars. I am concerned about the long-term prognosis for people meeting off apps.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think people are starting to realize the apps are good, but people are going back to authentic ways of meeting too. Because I think AI is a useful tool, but people know being with people is important too, right? So let's talk about your book, The Accidental Gay Historian.
Sure.
So what can you tell us about that, and when we can see it coming out? What can we? Is it stories? Is it pictures?
It's both, and I've written 3 out of what will probably be 30 chapters, and I've been working, and just today, I'll pick up tomorrow morning, a bound copy of those 3 chapters in a book that I can take to the 2 candidates for my editor's role that I'm considering. Yeah. And I will have them help guide me. And I have so many stories and so many photos that I could write 10 books, and I don't want to do that. I want to know what's going to be most valued.
Well,
Do I tell stories of seduction? Do I tell stories of politics? Mm-hmm. Do I tell stories of AIDS? I mean, there's all kinds of things.
Well, I mean, I would love you to, like something we do on this show is we research people and we write a story about them. And I know you don't like woo-woo stuff, so this is a little bit woo-woo, so you're going to have to bear with me because I wrote you a story, a tribute story, and a poem, in fact. But I'd like to ask you if there's something that you would like to read from your stories on the show. Is there something you'd like to read after I read my story? Anything to read?
If there is, I'd have to go get it, and that might...
Well, we can pause the recording for you to go get it. But okay. So here's your woo-woo story. It's a tribute to Mike Balaban, okay? You're gonna have to deal with me here for a second, okay?
Okay.
So there are people you meet who remind you that your story matters. Not in the abstract, not in the platitude, but in the specific bodily, undeniable way that a photograph does, where you look at it and you think, that is real. That happened. Somebody was there. Mike Balaban was there. He was there at the edge of Fifth Avenue in 1978, heart hammering, scanning the crowd for co-workers, camera raised. He was there when the gay bars of Little Rock and Lubbock and Houston making notes in the margins of his life. He was there in San Diego with a bartender named Beau, who became his home for the summer and his grief for a lifetime. He was there in Rio in 1983, Walkman around his neck, finally feeling something that might have been pride. He was there on Wall Street trading floor by day and out the door into another life at night, running 2 parallel tracks so seamlessly that no one who worked alongside him ever guessed, which was the whole point, and also his own particular kind of loneliness. He was taking photographs the whole time, not for prosperity, not because he understood what he was building, just because he had a good eyes and the moments were worth catching. I sat with him this past weekend at a retreat in the same room where I watched the other men lay down armor they had carried for years, and Mike talked about his photos in a way some people talked about their children, with a specific tenderness for each one, a full memory attached to every frame. I watched him describe Beau. I heard a particular quiet that's sometimes in person's voice when they talk about someone the world took too soon. And I thought, this is what it looks like when a life finds its meaning retroactively, when you open a box decades later and discover that you thought you were just making private history. Your imperfect, joyful, desperate, specific history that was actually everyone's. Because here's the thing about LGBTQ history Mike Balaban is preserving. The Stonewall riots were documented now. Harvey Milk is in the movies. Marriage equality is settled law. Well, we hope. Those chapters got written. They found their place in the textbooks and curricula and the anniversary specials. But what the man at the edge of the parade? What about the man at the edge of the parade shaking? What about the summer cross-country trip taught you how to be yourself? What about the entire architecture of signals and coded gestures, certain bars on certain corners, the whole invisible world gay men and women built just to find themselves, find each other inside a country that were pretending they didn't exist? What about Beau? Mike Balaban is writing all that down, photographing it, building a platform so everyone's version can get written down, because he understood something I think we all sense but rarely act on. The personal story isn't a footnote. It is a story, and no one keeps it. If no one keeps it, it disappears. He's 66 years old. Are you 66 years old? Is that your age?
74 a week from today.
I thought you were older than that. He's 74 years old. He played college football, drove across America alone, lost people he loved, and built a career, and opened a box of photographs and discovered that he had been doing something that mattered his whole life without knowing it. He is the real thing. And the record he's keeping, careful, loving, specific human record is one of the most spiritual acts I've ever encountered, not because it's grand, because it insists quietly and persistently that we are worth remembering, all of us, everyone. Yeah, so what do you think of your...
Thank you, Doyle. I think you captured me quite well. Maybe built me up a little too much, but...
you do that, Mike. I don't know who told you to do that, but you do that when we see you, right? And we know who you are, and we give you compliments, and then you automatically put yourself down. You don't have to do it, right? Because I don't know, I don't know if it's a pride thing or you think that you have to. I don't want to be the one standing up looking amazing up here, but so it's okay. It's true. This is all true. You built something grand and amazing and spiritual that is going to be held. I know you said that you had people, like young people, contacting you when your website went up or your Instagram. 50,000 followers for your pictures. So you're building something special, and people need it. We know about Harvey Milk. We know about Stonewall. We know about the thing that happened in San Francisco. What's that street called? Oh boy,
in the Castro.
Yeah, so we know about these things, but do people know everyday gay men's history? Right, we know about these famous people, but what you're capturing is everyday gay men's history.
Well, you'll forgive me. I am concerned that not enough younger LGBTQ people even understand the basics, for example, of AIDS. They know there was a disease, but if you ask them, tell me what you know of it. Tell me what you know of the history, and they have no clue that we were petrified in our boots. That we were not only curtailing sex, but we were just afraid everything was going to give it to us. And so eventually we learned to live with it, but it was a disastrous 10 or 15 years of hiding from the world. And it's unreal now to people that we had to live that way. But they ought at least be aware of it and appreciate what we fought for and learn some of the tactics we used to win the battles that brought us the rights we have now, which are under duress. So that's why I think history, whether it's from an individual or an event, our community history needs to be told and learned.
Yeah, they need to know the heroes who are walking around and, have given them this freedom. A lot of them feel now because of all the drugs that are related to AIDS and HIV, they almost think it's curable, so they think, well, whatever, if I get it, I'll just take the drugs. I mean, they're being flippant about it again because all these drugs are out there. But did you say that you had, if I pause the recording, is there a story you'd like to go that you could read, or did you want to tell us?
Pause it, and I'll tell you the choices very quickly.
Wait, okay, so you want me to pause it for that?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Okay, I'm pausing it now.
Before you do.
Okay, so I'm going to press record and make sure you say the title again, too.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
So this is my second chapter of the 3 that I've drafted to show potential editors on my book. Learning how to be gay. Well, I had already told my family and fraternity brothers I thought I was gay in 1976. For numerous reasons, I did little about it and had no gay friends in New York City as late as 1979. Meanwhile, I worked at a boring bank job in Latin American lending, which I thoroughly detested. Finally, in March 1979, I gave up my job, negotiated a severance package with my bosses, and decided to escape from New York for the summer to figure out what would come next. In truth, I was desperate to go somewhere that I could learn to be gay. So I sublet my 1-bedroom apartment to a friend, took my little Celica, my 1974 college graduation present, and set off on a cross-country drive by myself. This was in the midst of the gas crisis, which made it rather challenging, but it didn't deter me. Driving southward and westward, I stopped in every city from D.C. to San Diego and back, large enough to possess a gay bar. Armed with my Bob Dameron's address book, I visited all kinds of gay bars. as an early sign of my tendency to archive important parts of my life, I wrote down on two sides of a sheet of 11 by 14 yellow legal paper the following info about every place I visited: city, name of the club, how many times I visited, thumbs up, thumbs down, neutral sign, and a brief shorthand description of each location. I arrived in San Diego, where my brother, and by the way, I still have that list and it's going in the book. I arrived in San Diego, where my brother had settled 2 years earlier, just after July 4th, and stayed with him and a roommate. On my first foray out to San Diego bars, soon thereafter, I sidled up to the largest disco. I ended up at the largest disco in the city, the West Coast Production Company, a.k.a. the WCPC, or affectionately the Wussy Pussy. Mm-hmm. I was so overcome by the spectacle when I first walked in that I didn't even pay attention to the cute bartender as I bought myself a beer from him. He must have been unaccustomed to customers ignoring him, because moments later, a bar back brought me a complimentary beer from him. I went over to thank him and learned his name was Beau Ranillo, B-O, Beau. And he was from the same backward area where I'd grown up, the Alabama-Florida border. The first words out of his mouth were, "Do you want to go home and fuck later?" Excuse me, fourth F. Back in New York City, I would have declined, seeking a dinner to get to know him better, but on vacation, with nothing better to do, I quickly accepted his invitation. Beau plied me with drinks and other mood-enhancing substances to keep me near until he became available at 3 a.m. when he took me home and quote-unquote took advantage of me with my full approval. After that, he and I began hanging out regularly, and he essentially became my summer boyfriend. One day, Beau took me to notorious Black's Beach, infamous for the 350-foot nearly vertical drop from the overhanging cliffs to the beach, and the numerous nude sunbathers present, both gay and straight. I obsessively needed to fit in my daily 5-mile run, so I asked Beau to join me in a naked run along the water's edge. He complied, though after only 1 mile he was exhausted. I kept on. At least I did, until 2 state troopers in a van pulled up alongside me, informed me I was breaking the law by being nude on the county beach, issued me a summons, and dropped me off back at my towel. I still have that ticket, too. That summer was one of the best I can remember. To be clear, monogamy was not part of the gay code at that point, so I had to learn how to be gay in a way I had not in New York City. I learned how to cruise. I picked up several men who I slept with, 2 of whom were friends of Beau, with his approval, visited friends and family up and down the California coast, and saw the big discos in San Francisco and L.A. and converted in Laguna Beach's West Street Beach and its vaunted Boom Boom Room. By the time I returned to New York City in early October 1979, I no longer felt nervous about circulating amid the intense gay nightlife of Manhattan. Soon after, Beau and 3 of his San Diego friends came to New York City, stayed with me, and we all attended the Mr. Blue Boy, which was a gay magazine at the time, the Mr. Blue Boy beauty contest at Studio 54. Like many first-time gay travelers to New York City in the late 70s, my friends were eager to visit the Mine Shaft, the notorious downtown bar sex club I'd never visited because it just wasn't my kind of place as a demisexual. But I persuaded my best friend, an habitué of that club, to chaperone my friends and me there. Because I'd taken a mood-altering substance earlier that evening, I got lost in the downstairs darkroom, the only time in my life I experienced anonymous sex. After that, some of my visiting friends joined me in traveling to D.C. to attend the first ever National March on Washington for lesbian and gay rights in October 14, 1979. Afterwards, We were seated on bar stools in the Lost and Found disco at their beer blast, where I had initially begun to come out while living in D.C. in 1976, when I realized my butt had begun to burn. Suspecting the worst, I cut my trip short, raced to Manhattan, and was referred to my first gay doctor, who informed me I had contracted gonorrhea. In my only visit to that pleasure palace, not only did I catch a sexually transmitted disease, but my wallet had been pickpocketed out of my jeans while I was in the darkroom. Small wonder I had no interest to ever return to that bar or others like it. When the guys from San Diego above were visiting me in New York in early October '79, they desperately wanted to go to the mine shaft. Now I've got this is repeated. I'll have to change it. Anyway, it was a sea change summer. Mm-hmm. Before, I didn't have any gay friends. I didn't know how to go to a bar and meet someone. I just didn't have a clue. And after I met Beau and his friends and had a summer playing around, I came back to New York and the intimidation was gone. And I was able to start going out at nights. And I wasn't working initially, so that was another benefit. But, within the year, I got a new job and I had to figure out how to daytime suit and tie, nighttime tight jeans. But I managed.
Did you say it was a big seat change? Is that what you said? And
sea change.
I thought you said seat. I said, you're talking about your butt burning. I said, yeah, it was.
No.
A
sea change. A change in the temperature and the consistency of the sea.
Oh, a sea change. Okay. Then I thought you said scene as in SCENE. So, but
no.
I think I think you need to know and accept, Mike, how the younger gay generation needs to honor you, and you need to learn to take the compliments a little bit and say that you did something big and you did something important. And babe, come on, you went from bar to bar across country with a yellow pad where you wrote a review and an editorial about each location. You knew you were collecting more than just information for yourself.
Honest to God, every one of these things I saved, right?
Yeah.
Was for my own enjoyment now. I knew I would want to see them. I didn't know anybody else would be curious.
Okay.
I have a little composition book that is about 3 inches by 1.5 inches, and I used it to take as a diary when I had my first business trip down to visit my boss in Bogota, Colombia.
So what was...
in 1978 at 26.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, I was warned not to leave the hotel because of kidnappings, but I got bored and went up to the top of the tram to this tourist site, and I thought there was somebody wanting to kidnap me, but it ended up being my early gaydar. Someone approached me and offered to give me a tour of nightlife in Bogota in 1978. Wow. And there were 20 gay bars at that time. There was more than that in New York. He took me to 9 of them, and we had drinks at each. And I have little write-ups of each of those 9 bars, and then a very detailed description of everything we did sexually for the final three hours of the evening. That's 48 years old. How many people do you know keep that? You think you're keeping it to show somebody? No, it was my own...
Well, maybe not the sexual thing, but like the other stuff, you were keeping it. When you write a review of something, you're writing a review for other people to read, right? You're not writing because you're going to remember it because you were there, right?
No, I wouldn't remember if I didn't have it written down.
He's as stubborn as he is gay. So, okay. But thank you for doing it. And I have to say, when you went on the road in 1978, is that the year you went on the road?
Yeah. 79.
I was 6 years old, yeah. So when you went on the road.
I was paving the way for you.
Yeah, it took me a while to come to my truth. But, hey, this was we got kids out there who are, I'm saying kid, but I mean anybody under 35 or 40, I call a kid. But what's your message to people out there who are going to see your work? And what's the message for people who are trying to take the same path in the gay community? What would you like to say to them? Oh.
This is the message. First is to document and preserve and save our history, both for younger LGBTQ people now and the generations that follow, because if you don't take control of writing your own history, you'll be written out of it. And so that's important to learn your history. The second one is, and this is going to be a little bit opinionated.
Not you.
I want to form a community through storytelling. And in storytelling, I interview, for example, an Ecuadorian-American trans woman who had 2 husbands, a baby mama, 4 kids, and then finally went through the transition over a decade and is now happily a trans woman. And I have friends, gay men, who will say to my face, I have nothing to do with the trans community. They're not part of my family. I don't need to pay attention to them. And my answer is, you all went through the same parallel path. The difference was yours was sexual orientation and theirs was gender dysphoria. But you had the same rejections and self-loathing and all of that. And you finally came to grips with it, dealt with it, made the change, and found friends who love you as you are. Come together with those in the LGBT community who may be different from you on the surface, but as outsiders in this society are equal members of the family. And let's listen to each other's stories. And in so doing, if I listen to your story, I'm going to feel closer to you. If you listen to mine, you're going to feel closer to me. Right. And maybe we can prevent the right wing from using these differences to pick us apart the way they're doing right now.
Yeah. Sticking together.
So unity through storytelling.
Thank you so much, Mike. Mike Balaban, and we can see you at Bammer.co, and we can also. And you want to give your social media tags?
Yeah, I would say my primary name is Bammer47, which was my nickname from the high school football team and my college football jersey number. And Bammer47 is the page name for my Instagram. Yeah. And for my YouTube channel and for my podcast series. So if you look up under Bammer47, you'll find me.
And what's the name of your podcast?
And the podcast is Bammer and Me.
Bammer and Me. Okay. Well, we'll get people to listen to that. Of course, all the links will be in the description of this episode. But Mike, thank you so much. Okay, people are going to be mad at me. You're related to a pretty well-known actor. And so what's your relationship with him and how?
He's my father's first cousin, but even more prominent, my grandfather was the president of Paramount Pictures for 36 years.
So your cousin is Bob Balaban, who was in
Balaban.
Seinfeld.
My aunt Judy's first husband was an agent for Audrey Hepburn, Grace Kelly.
And
Marlon Brando was the best man at their wedding. Everybody in my family, except my immediate family, is still part of the whole Hollywood thing.
So what's your grandfather's name who ran Paramount?
Barney Balaban.
Barney Balaban. Wow.
There's a building in the Paramount backlot named the Barney Balaban Building.
And you have a good relationship with your cousin Bob Balaban? Do you guys talk?
Yeah. I mean, we didn't grow up. I was on a cattle ranch.
Yeah.
He was in Hollywood. But, I mean, I had lunch with him at Cafe Luxembourg in New York just a few years ago, and we kind of remind each other how we should know each other better, but, life's busy.
Yeah, I know. And he's a little bit older than you, too, I think. He's a little bit.
About 5 years, I think.
Yeah, I did look him up, but thank you. But people would be amiss if I didn't talk about him. But thank you so much for coming on, Mike. And it's important work you're doing, and people need to see it. And we'll hopefully send some people over there. And you and I will, of course, talk offline about some podcasting stuff. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Well, thank you for boosting me in my story. I do want to let people know, if you go to any of these social media and you see me and something strikes a chord in you, feel free to reach out to me. I engage everybody that I can, and I've met a lot of people through my social media. I'm sure you have as well.
Perfect. Okay. I really appreciate you, Mike, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Doyle, and the sound worked, huh?
Yeah. Okay, I pressed pause on the recording.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, you just have to... And there it is, Mike Balaban, the accidental gay historian. which honestly may be the least accidental thing I've ever heard in my life. Think about what this man did. He got a 1974 Toyota Celia in the middle of the gas crisis, drove across the entire country alone, walked into every gay bar he could find from Washington, D.C. to San Diego, and wrote it down on a yellow legal pad, not for anyone else, just because something in him knew it mattered. 20,000 negatives in chronological order in a box. Ticket from a naked beach run that he still has. A diary from 9 gay bars in Bogota in 1978. This man did not accidentally become a historian. He was born one. He just needed a little time to catch up to himself. And his message tonight stopped me cold. If you don't take control of writing your own history, you'll be written out of it. Say that again out loud. If you don't take control of writing your own history, you'll be written out of it. Let it land. Because right now, in this moment, that sentence matters more than it has in a very long time. I invite you to go find Mike's work. Go to bammer.co. Look up Bammer47 on Instagram and YouTube. Listen to the podcast Bammer and Me. And if something in his photos or his stories touches you, reach out to him directly because he will answer you. This man has built a community, one story at a time, and he's still building it. We know about Stonewall. We know about Harvey Milk. But do we know about Beau, the bartender in San Diego, who became someone's summertime of becoming? Do we know about a man who wore a suit and a tie by day and lived a whole real life by night? Do we know about the ones we lost? Mike Balaban is making sure we do. And that's the kind of heroism that does not announce itself. It just shows up quietly with a camera and a yellow legal pad and refuses to forget. I'm Doyle. This has been Spirit Talks, your bedtime stories for grown-ups. Take care of yourselves and each other out there. Remember, your story's worth keeping. Now, go make a story worth telling.